Welcome back to the Patrick Reagan Show. Playing a little Sean Colvin there from way back in the 90s. Some of you may recognize that, some of you may not. This segment, I wanted to talk a little bit about this whole, and we've talked about this over and over again and been talked about almost to death on just everywhere you're listening on talk shows. But it's this IRS scandal, and it continues to get bigger and bigger, and it's reaching closer and closer to the president. Surprisingly, though, we don't seem to have a whole lot of people who care at this point. Only about half of the Americans surveyed think there needs to be an investigation of this. That makes sense, though, when you remember about half of voting Americans voted for the president, and they probably don't see any problem with picking on the opposition. That is, until it's them. Then there's a big problem, but by then it's too late. Now, if this IRS scandal doesn't lay the argument about too much government to rest, I don't know what will. We've had story after story on this very show talking about how it's not good for the government to be following the citizens this closely, to be retaining all this information about them and stockpiling everything floating around the internet. You can go back through our archives and hear me warning about this over and over and over. Probably a lot of you thought, oh, Patrick's being paranoid, he's being hysterical. Well, am I? There are still some of you in this listening audience who think that right now, despite all this evidence, irrefutable evidence that this is what happens with this type of government surveillance, you think this is either being blown out of proportion or I'm just a nut, a conspiracy theorist. Well, let me be the first to inform you, I'm not much of a conspiracy theorist when I'm getting my information from major news outlets. It's a little hard to keep things quiet when people are testifying to it in Congress. Even now, the FBI has a program called Next Generation Identification. What they're doing here is they're already working to identify people based on computer facial recognition. They go out and aggregate the information from Facebook, MySpace, and Twitter, and Instagram, Pinterest, all of these, everything on the internet, and they take this and combine it with the stuff from public cameras and webcams, all this stuff, they tie it back to you. They build a profile of you. They know where you shop, where you work, what you earn, where you go, everything. You know how much the marketing people of stores and businesses know about you, yet you'll poo-poo the government knowing this much. And you'll say it's all about fear-mongering. Besides, you fear big business more than government. As I stated on this show just last week, businesses, I don't care how big they are, they don't have the ability to jail you nor execute you. But the government sure can, and it has demonstrated many times over and over that it will. All this technical intrusion into your privacy is being sold to you under the auspices of security. Whenever something happens like the bombing in Boston, the government pushes for more of this surveillance, and the people eagerly accept it under the guise that they will be more safe. The government says, see, we have this footage. We have all this information. We can identify people in a crowd. We can almost immediately know every person who was standing in that crowd, who was coming and going. And because of that, we can catch the people, the perpetrators who committed this horrible act of violence. That's how it's being sold to us. Because who doesn't want to watch criminals? Who doesn't want to make the people responsible pay for their crimes? For goodness sake, they killed children. Your rights, your privacy isn't worth a child's life, is it? What kind of animal are you that you would think any differently? Well, again, as I've stated on this show time and again, and people don't want to hear this, but no, that child's life is not worth forfeiting my rights, my privacy. Yes, children might have died or did die in Boston. Children died in Sandy Hook. But none of those lives, none of them are worth giving up my natural human rights. Rights I have because I'm a human. Do you know why that child's life, those child's lives aren't worth me giving up my rights? It's because many, many more people died to secure those rights for me. Many more lives have been laid down. Sons and daughters, moms and dads, all have shed blood for me and you, specifically for the rights they considered so sacred, so important, that their own individual life meant nothing in the face of all that was to be gained. And now you're going to stand here, even the president, all these sanctimonious politicians and know-it-all citizen busybodies, you're going to stand there and declare that your son or daughter, wife or husband, their life is so much more important than all the other people's lives who died securing the very rights you're trying to take away. The nerve you have to stand before the American people and try to say these victims' lives are worth more than the human rights that many more people have died for so that we can live free in this country. Freedom you're trying to trade for a supposed security that doesn't even exist. You might as well be trying to trade our freedom for a unicorn. Here's a news flash. The government can't guarantee your safety. Even the president has admitted it. If you listened to this show last week, you heard it. Go to our YouTube channel if you don't believe me. Listen to last week's show. I don't have time to sit here and play the clips. If I sat here and played clips from past shows demonstrating where I was right, where I was warning you about something that's happening now, well, that's all we'd be doing. Because I have been warning you about this over and over. That's why this show's so important. That's why you listen. That's why you need to get other people to listen. Because we have too many citizens of this country who are effectively zombified. They are the walking dead. Their lives mean nothing other than what their government, what their political party tells them. They don't think. They don't question. But unfortunately, they do vote. And this is why we have to reach out to them, to wake them up before we fall too much farther down this hole that is engulfing our country. As I said when I started this segment, if this IRS scandal doesn't point out the danger of having too much information about you, I don't know what will. And it isn't just the IRS. As I said, go to our archives. Listen to this segment talking about the National Security Agency data center they're building outside Salt Lake City. I've talked about it. It's up to you to listen and spread the word. Here's where this sort of information gathering goes wrong. Let's say you're a member of the Tea Party. You go to some rallies and the government knows because they have agents there talking to the people attending. They're getting pictures. Also, they can feed all this information into their computers. Now, with this nifty new facial recognition technology, everyone who didn't unknowingly give their names to the agents attending, they can just identify you through this facial recognition program. Now, when it comes down to start shutting down the political opposition, they send the IRS to audit people who have been attending these types of events or harassing them, harassing their family. Does this sound like something that should be happening in this country? This is something we talk about happening in Russia or China or World War II Germany. For goodness sake, that's one of the reasons we're given for fighting against Hitler. And here it is happening in this country. I don't care whether you're left or right, liberal or conservative. You cannot allow this sort of thing to occur because eventually someone is going to use it against you. You can no longer sit back and laugh because the people on the other political party, on the other political end of the spectrum, they're being harassed because the government will use it against whoever they need to. Even the news media, those people who constantly give government a pass, who shill for more government control, they're even being investigated. The government's been caught doing it. And still we have reporters excusing the behavior, trying to say it isn't a big deal. We have the Attorney General of the United States meeting with news reporters and organizations off the record, the ones that would go there anyway, but giving them guidelines about investigating leaks in the government. In America, this is happening right now. We have people defending it, people who are excusing this behavior. All right, we're up on the bottom of the hour break already here on the Patrick Regan Show. Boy, this show just flies by. When we come back after the bottom of the hour break, the second half of the show, we'll talk about Google and, what else we got? Maybe we'll try to get to some other things here, maybe nullification, we can get to it. But it will be a big half hour coming up. Don't miss it here on the Patrick Regan Show on the Libertarian Lighthouse Radio Network.